Welcome back to Lower Lap Time, everyone. I hope you're going well. As promised, I've managed to con Philippe, the mental mindset performance coach, to jump on and do a show with us. He's here with us today. Welcome, Philippe. Welcome to Lower Lap Time.
Hello. Thank you for that, Martin. Hi everyone. My name's Philippe, and I'm a mindset performance coach. And I've worked with athletes and business professionals across the globe, helping them master their mind to unlock the peak performance, basically when it truly matters. My focus really with athletes is helping them conquer their mental hurdles that hold them back. So that could be battling self-doubt, overcoming performance inconsistencies, or transforming negative self-talk into something a bit more positive. I've got over a decade's worth of experience working in the corporate world, and I've spent the last 2 years freelancing, guiding clients from across all sorts of different industries to help them achieve their absolute best.
Beautiful, mate. Welcome to the
Martin.
channel. So we've got the mental mindset performance covered, and then obviously maybe the technical, tactical. I think we'll just take this opportunity to set the table. There are 4 areas of driver preparation, and in any sport, you're going to get these 4 areas, right? So you got technical, which in our case with F1 is just your technique, your driving, upshifting, downshifting, timing of braking, turning, your lines, throttle application, wet lines, and so on. Then you got the tactical side. This is where Oscar made the mistake in Silverstone under the safety car. Starts, restarts, attack, defense, strategy, even fuel saving, tire saving, just even the way you just operate and run the race. And then you've got the mental side, which is where obviously Philippe can help specialize in. And then you've got the physical side as well. Now, listen, obviously having you here, we're going to not spend so much on the technical, tactical as we normally do. Physical, we're not that interested in anyway, because it's been quite a while since someone lost the race due to physical limitation. Look, we could talk about Lando for a long time on this podcast. I'm going to park that one just for a fraction of a second, if you don't mind. I want to start with Oscar Piastri, if it's okay with you. Let me give you the context and set the table. So for the longest time, everyone's been saying, Oscar, he's on the mental side, he's too strong. He's too stoic. There's no emotions there. There's no points to be found in Oscar Piastri on the mental side. I would agree with that. And I would say if you're competing, Lando Norris, competing against Oscar Piastri, the points are in the technical and tactical side. You only need to look at the last 2 races to support my thesis there. Austria qualifying, on the technical side, Lando out-qualified him. And on the tactical side, Silverstone under the safety car, you can argue all day whether or not it should have been a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. The reality was it was a penalty and it was a mistake. My question to you, Philippe, is, are there any points? Is there any hope to draw points out of Oscar Piastri on the mental side? Or are we only talking technical, tactical sides? And if yes, then how would you rock that boat, that stable boat that is Oscar Piastri?
Do you know, it's a great question. I do have to agree with you. He's a very, very cool cucumber, right? Like nothing seems to kind of take his interest away, take his focus away. Even in interviews, he seems fairly blunt, to the point. Kind of on the verge of boring, maybe sometimes. He doesn't give a proper answer sometimes, but I guess that's what helps him with that stoic image, right? And that stoic feel when he's driving and whatnot. So I think I do think there are certain things, and for me, I feel like we're starting to see those little cracks. Look, after what happened in Canada, that was a big thing for Lando, right? But to be fair to him, he's come back in a really positive manner, right? He's performed well at the GP since Canada. He seems to have accepted and moved on. And if we look at the British GP Silverstone, where those cracks starting to appear when Oscar Piastri, had that little braking incident under the safety car, we don't really see Oscar do these kind of things, right? I mean, maybe he was just trying to catch Max out, like George tried to do in Canada. But for me, I think probably one of the things that could irk him and take him off his game is Lando getting better, getting a bit more stronger with his mindset and performing better under pressure, because we know Lando is probably out of the 2 the one with a weaker mindset to an extent. But I do think that could irk him. They're getting closer. Look, the momentum's on Lando coming up to this Belgian GP, right? So if Lando does well, P1, P2 in the sprint, and obviously in the race, obviously in qualifying as well, could that kind of push Oscar off? I mean, there's a few other bits. I don't know what your thoughts are, Martin, on that. Do you think Lando performing better is putting a bit of pressure on Oscar?
But like again, I just think like I look at the drivers in through those four lenses, and I'm like, there's no points to be gained on the mental side of Oscar Piastri. You can, like, his mum would probably be the best person to ask. I think she's addressed this in one of the podcasts recently. Like, he just, nothing phases him. So I guess to answer my question, then you're not really suggesting that there's anything worth fighting for on that side, which means on the technical and tactical side, that's where the points are.
Yeah. I mean, I think the pressure will hit different when it comes to, the end of the season, right? If those two are still gunning for it and it's close, I think we're going to see, a different mental pressure hit both of them. To be fair to Lando, he kind of in it, I guess, near the end after Brazil. He obviously wasn't. But before that, was he in a bit of a battle with Max? Clearly he was. So he's kind of got a bit of experience there. Look, I know Oscar's done well in kind of the other Formula Championships, but this is the top dog. This is F1. Will he start to crack under a bit of pressure when it comes to it? I mean, if I was to say, I mean, kind of history and experience tells you no, right? He ain't gonna crack. But I can see a few cracks appearing, and I think there are a few kind of points that Lando can get on a mental side as it comes up to the GP at the end of the season if they're both still fighting for it. I do think Lando will take a bit of help from that experience he got with Max last year fighting for it. So it'll be Oscar's first time. I still think Oscar is the stronger one in terms of mentality, but I do think if all Lando needs to do is just keep performing. That's all he's got to do. Don't worry about anything else. I think George Russell has a great mindset with this. Don't worry, with George Russell, obviously it's contract, but with Lando, I think just keep performing. Put Oscar under that pressure at the minute. You're the one that's chasing, right? I know Oscar's already said he likes to be being chased. Which is a very strong thing to have. I think I'd rather be in Lando's position here, chasing. You've got nothing to lose, just go for it. So I think when it comes to the end of season, I think Lando just keeps performing. I think that's it. F1. Yeah, you beat other people, but your real competition is your teammate. And obviously, at the minute, Oscar's up slightly. Will that change after this weekend? We'll see. But I think come the end of the season, Lando just keeps performing. That'll knock Oscar's mindset a bit.
Okay, so you're potentially suggesting that when it comes close to the sharp end of the championship, Lando having that experience in 2024 and the pressure that comes with fighting for a world championship, and you think that given that Lando's been through that in some way, shape or form slightly, that under those circumstances, Oscar being his first time at fighting for a championship, you think under those circumstances there might be a little mistake in Oscar Piastri under the pressure lens. Now, it's interesting that you say that because I was going to talk about Lando Norris and pressure, and I could just jump across to that point now. Why don't we do it? So there's the performance under pressure theory that says that whenever it comes to the crunch, Lando just can't do it, right? I think Jolyon Palmer was quoted as saying something like that, if I quote him correctly. When it comes to the crunch, Lando can't do it. But then I think about and he mentioned as well, like Monaco qualifying is a very high pressure situation. There was another example where I think he performed really well under pressure. Melbourne race win was a massive one under huge amounts of pressure. So it's not that he can't do it. Do you subscribe to that theory that when it comes to the crunch that Lando just bottles it? And if yes, then why not come a championship fight towards the end of the season?
Yeah, look, I think my point's going to come with a caveat, right? I think last year was his first time fighting for a championship, and would I subscribe to that theory last year? 100%. Would I even subscribe to that theory for most of the season so far? Yes, I would. The caveat is, I think, honestly, since Canada, and I'm, full disclosure, I actually thought Lando would have kind of crumbled after Canada. I mean, it was slightly embarrassing, kind of that crash. It was with your teammate. He went out. Oscar didn't, massive point loss. So I do subscribe to that theory, but I do think he's starting to change. So and good for him. I mean, it's not easy to kind of deal with all this pressure, but I've seen a change in him since Canada. I mean, I don't want to call him lucky for getting that Silverstone win. Obviously, if Oscar didn't get that 5 seconds, Oscar probably wins it, right? But like you said, it was a penalty. He got the penalty, and to be fair to Lando, there was a bit of pressure. It's his home GP. He's basically got his biggest rival and championship rival ahead of him he's got to hold it out. And like you said, it's kind of similar to Melbourne in a way. There was obviously a lot of rain, a lot of weather happening in that. So it wasn't the easiest race to kind of stay ahead. We know those two McLarens are absolute rocket ships. We know, and I know we might speak about this later, it kind of suits Oscar's driving style a bit more. So there's that to it as well. So yeah, I would say I have subscribed to that, but I'm starting to slowly come off it because he's starting to prove me wrong, to be fair. And I do think going into this Belgian GP, I think the momentum's still with Lando, and I think if anything, the pressure rather is probably slightly on Oscar than it is Lando.
Yeah, and since he's taken that front suspension update, he's been seemingly happy. I mean, what did we have? Canada. It's not really a representation. I'm talking on the technical side now. We had Canada, not really a representation of that whole front end geometry in the long corners. And then we had a wet race in Silverstone. So it was kind of like, okay, so just on Oscar. So conversely to Oscar, where we say that there's no points in that direction on the mental side, potentially fighting for a championship yet to be seen. I feel like Max Verstappen is the flip of that. I think Max is as a driver, he's built on technical and tactical excellence, got lap time for days, and his racecraft is sublime. But then I've always said if there are any points in the Max Verstappen championship, it's on the mental side, and he gets a lot of credit for having champion mentality. I agree, he definitely has that. Like, self-confidence is not something Max Verstappen lacks, but emotions, I think Max can easily be unhinged and off the hook and give away points. And that's where last year I was saying, like, what George should do is continue to press those buttons, because if you do, you explode Max, and all that beautiful driving, all that beautiful technique, all that beautiful racecraft just goes completely out the window because he lost his head. That's what we saw in Spain. I believe we saw that in Mexico last year as well. A lot of people don't subscribe to that because they're like, oh, it was all planned and he was trying to screw Lando over. And no, I was like, that's an example of Max losing his head, and we'll see it again. And there's points over there in that direction. And then in Spain, you can't argue with that. What do we do with Max then? Like, how does he... at the moment, it hasn't really cost him that much. Never cost him a championship. It's never cost him a race win, I dare say. It's never cost him anything significant. This year in Spain, it was like, what am I going to do, 5th or 10th or whatever? Like, who cares? But it's to the extent now where we're starting to talk about race bans. He's now 1 point off. I believe he's still got the 1 point off the race ban, or maybe that's expired. He's got extra points either this weekend or next weekend. What do we do with Max then? Are they like, is this a big weakness that he would have to address should it come crunch time? Or like, is that just part of who he is and we just have to accept that and accept that in with the beautiful driving that is Max Verstappen?
So yeah, this is interesting. I'd probably have to disagree with you. So I actually think, look, is it right? I'm going to go straight out there and say it's not. What he does, he shouldn't do, right? But that's just who he is, right? I think, like you said, with those amazing lap times, with the amazing driving we get, it's just who Max is. I think he's someone who he just does not want to lose, unless he's accepted it, like he probably has for this season because of the car and a few kind of mishaps here and there with points losses. I think this season he's kind of given up. But if we look at the previous four, I think it's just who Max is. And look, would I want my driver to do it if I was a team principal? No. And I think you're right. I think there are points. So I think you're partly right, and I think there's a point where I disagree on. So I think there are definitely times where he just loses his head and he loses points. Like you said, Mexico last year. Like you said, Spain was a bit of a weird one, just because, I mean, he was 5th or 10th. It's not really going to be a huge difference considering the kind of grand scheme of things. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? I was trying to rack my brain to think if I could remember a kind of race loss that he could have had, or where he's leading and he's kind of lost his head and done something. I can't really think of any, to be fair. I mean, there was one in Italy. I can't remember if it was Monza or Imola, where him and Hamilton had that crash on that first turn or second turn. I mean, you can argue both ways, I guess, for that. But I think, yeah, to the point, I think it hasn't cost him a championship so far, right? Yeah, it might cost him a few points. But I think it's just who Max is. And honestly, I think you take that emotion away from him. We all don't want to see it. But you take that emotion away from him, you also don't get full-fledged, foot to the floor Max. it's part of his DNA and it's what makes him great. You know, you look back at the Schumachers, he was a very similar type of driver, right? He did not want to let anyone past him. He'd kind of go all out. He'd use his car. I don't like to say this, and I don't really like to say it, but for the sake of the podcast, use the car as a weapon, kind of thing. So yeah, I think I don't think in the mentality there are points in terms of playing with his emotions. But then we look at Brazil last year, right? He was obviously annoyed. I've seen a fair few interviews of him post that qualifying session, and he was annoyed. And I think you look at what he did. Okay, look, could he have been lucky with that red flag? Yeah, but you know, Lando and George, did they need to come in? Did Max play a risk staying out later on those kind of more worn tyres in that weather? And I think sometimes if you do annoy Max, it pulls a different level of Max out. So I think with someone like George, it's interesting. I think George has always been kind of fairly professional about it. I think Lando's said a fair few things last year that might have irked Max in the wrong way and got him to perform better. But yeah, I think there are points to your point and to answer the question. I think yeah, there are points if you can play it as emotion, but I think it's a double-edged sword with Max because I think he can just turn it up if he wants to.
Yeah, I agree. Just speaking about it as I think about it, when you start to push Max's buttons, his emotions rise. And then he starts driving with emotion. That can go one of two ways. That can go to just mega lap time and he'll just destroy everyone and he'll go to that next level. Or there's a mistake in there as well. He's playing like high risk at that point because he's driving with emotion. So that's why I say there are points in there. Now, Max doesn't need that emotion. He can win races without it. So that's where I'm saying there's points available. So just for clarity, what's the part that you disagree with, that there's not points there in that area for Max?
I think it was just more I partly disagree that I think there are points, but it won't win you a championship at the end of the season. I think if Max is your rival, you've just got to perform better. I wouldn't even bother trying to annoy him. I think it's almost like I remember watching like a documentary on Kobe Bryant. And he said, you know what, the best thing to say to me before a game is be nice to me, right? If you trash talk him, it's just gonna cause him to just want to absolutely destroy you. And I think it's the same thing with Max. So I think just don't play with the fire. Like just let him be. He calls himself the lion and whatnot. I just don't unleash the lion. Just let the lion sleep, right? So that's it for me. But sorry, just to go to a point as well with Oscar. I know we've kind of moved on to Max, but just because I think this is key, especially in this year's battle. I think what could irk Oscar in a mentality way is if he gets a bit of bad luck as well, right? So I think he can deal with it, whether it's weather. But if he gets, and we haven't seen this with McLaren yet, but if they have a mishap with their car, or the car just doesn't perform on a weekend, or it has a reliability issue, or if he gets collected in a collision, I think something like that could mentally rock Oscar, like it could anyone. But yeah, sorry, just wanted to add that because I feel like there are points to be made everywhere, and I know Oscar does get that kind of stoic feel. But yeah, just wanted to add that out there because I do think there are points to be made on all of them.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because if you're saying like don't do that, you're not saying that there's not points in that direction, but you're saying be careful if you're doing that because then you've got the line to deal with. But then that's the only place I see points. I mean, I didn't see points on any of my sides over here. Everything I'm looking at, technical and tactical, looks pretty good. I've only ever spotted one weakness in long corners. He tends to take lines that chew his front tires. He still does that. I'm not sure why, but that's very niche. That will only crop up in the Hungaries and Netherlands, which we're going to get to, by the way, next couple of races. So keep an eye out for that. But that's that's like the only weakness. And I've explained that before to my subscribers. Looking at Max for me is like looking at a perfectly painted black wall and trying to find the white dot. It's so easy to find that white dot being the weakness because everything else looks perfect. Whereas if you ask me like, what's Lando's weakness, what's Sergio Perez's weakness, or what's Carlos Sainz's weakness, that picture looks so blurry for me that I just can't, or Yuki Tsunoda or something, I just can't like put my finger so firmly on a weakness. But with Max, it's not too bad. Let me ask you this question then. After, what was that race? Jeddah, Oscar and Max went into turn one side by side. Martin Brundle was asked the question by Ted Kravitz, and Ted goes, at this point in the championship, what is this, round 3, round 4, something like that? Ted goes, does Max race Oscar Piastri differently to Lando Norris? To which Martin Brundle responds, 100%. Max knows that there's something Street Fighter about Oscar Piastri. Now, when I heard that, it made me sick. I feel like that's misinformation, to be honest. Does Max race Oscar differently? No, Max doesn't care. This is my opinion, right? Max doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what your name is, where you come from. Max, me, I'm the best. I'm the champion, and everyone else is just rubbish, right? I think that's Max's mentality and champion mentality. And yeah, that's just now. Look, Martin Brundle raced against Ayrton Senna as well. I think Senna was cut from that class. I don't care who it is. He would crash into Prost and Brundle just the same. Like it doesn't matter. Where do you stand on that one? Does Max race? Do you think Max would treat them differently, like Oscar, Lando, or any of the competitors? Because in my book, treating them differently from any angle is a sign of respect to them. Oscar does this, therefore I need to adjust and do this. That's in a way a sign of respect. Max doesn't have respect for any of his opponents. And so even if it came down to a tactical thing, I don't think Max is going to adjust his driving at all, because in like I say, in a subconscious way, it's showing respect to your opponent. Max won't do that. Where do you sit on that? Do you think Max races them different, or is just they're all opponents to him?
So yeah, 50-50 again, but I'll explain why. So I do think I partly agree with you that I don't think he changes his style, kind of regardless of who he's driving. The only caveat I'd add to that is I disagree with I think he does have respect for certain drivers, right? Like he probably has a level of respect for all drivers. I think that's obviously true. But I do think with Oscar, people might hate me for saying this, but I do think Oscar's racecraft is, slightly better than Lando's. And Miami was a key point. Oscar duped Max. He knew what Max was going to do. He was going to push him out to the outside, so he duped him into doing that. Made Max lock up, and he takes it. Lando had to kind of he tried 2-3 times taking him over how he would want to, but then he kind of had to be coached by his engineer, which no shame in that. You got to do what you got to do, but I think Oscar was able to figure that out and kind of do it. And to your point, Saudi Arabia, Oscar had his elbows out. It's something that Max would have done, right? So I do think the part where I slightly disagree is I think he'll adapt it slightly if he knows someone has got good racecraft or can kind of do something that he does to them, if that makes sense. So I do think Max is Max, and you put him in, was it the RB19 or Rocky, whatever it's called, in 2023, he probably wouldn't have raced anyone different because he knew the car over the kind of race run would absolutely destroy the competition. Obviously this year, end of last year, middle of last year, the car isn't as strong, and the McLaren's stronger. So I do think, going into this year, if he's got a competitive car and he's up there, I think now, to be fair, he knows that the McLarens, I think we all know the McLarens are just too strong. So even if he was in pole, he won't fight it too hard. But let's just, for argument's sake, say he is in a competitive car. I do think he does drive differently against Oscar, against Lando. But I don't think it's in like a negative way. I think, like you said, it's more a level of respect and understanding how that driver drives. Again, you're more technical. You'll know like the ins and outs of what Max could do or Max could change. But I think from a mentality point, I think Max is Max, and he wouldn't take any prisoners. But I also think he's not stupid. Basically, he will figure out that people are doing what he's doing against them, so he'll need to adapt that.
Yeah, absolutely. But if it was Lando doing the decent racecraft, then Max would just follow suit and do exactly the same, right? So he's not necessarily treating them differently. It's just that they're different drivers, and then with Oscar's racecraft, you just can't push him off, for example. But Oscar's not silly as well to attack around the outside like Lando does as well. So you're always going to get a different response in that sense. But I don't think Max, I think he respects them from the human sense in the car. I think on the track, Max, it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, good point. I mean, he's obviously showing that, hasn't he? Yeah.
All right, let's move on then. Let's start to talk about Lando. Now, look, Lando's an interesting one because there's a couple of areas which I'm not going to draw out, but I'm just going to figuratively draw out when we start to talk about Lando's mindset, because everyone says different things, right? And I'm going to run through just at a high level at this point, and we'll go into a few of them in detail. But the performance under pressure theory was one that we've discussed already. It's that whenever it comes to the crunch, Lando just can't crack it, and that's got to do with performing under pressure. And that Lando will do anything to take that pressure off himself. For example, saying that we don't have the best car when the thing's absolute weapon, story for another day. But the performance under pressure piece is one. There's Lando's preparation versus reflection piece. That in a way he doesn't do the necessary prep work, and he'd rather not think about Formula One up to the weekend, for example. And then after the event, the reflection and how he comes down so hard on himself for making a mistake when he should be doing preparation for the next race. You know, I think there's a piece there on how well does he prepare, and does he spend too much time bashing himself in the reflection piece. I'm going to play you a clip on that one. We'll deep dive into that one first. There's the self-doubt piece and self-sabotage piece. This is the one Nico Rosberg talks about a lot. That Lando's so hard on himself. Charles is probably guilty of this one a little bit as well. Like, I am stupid. You know, the self-doubt and self-sabotage when you just repeatedly say to yourself, like, how dumb you are or how bad you are. I've got here on our notes, Philippe, does he want to actually win? Because Nick Kyrgios, the tennis player, he's always been like a talent who never like fully committed himself to the work and the sport. But he's always said, like, I'm not here to work my backside off. I'm here to have a good time and just play tennis. And you guys should accept that and respect that, because I'm not a Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, Yannick Sinner, whatever. I'm not one of those in the detail workaholics. I'm just here to have a good time, and I'm just happen to be a talented player. Don't fire at me if I don't try or win or fulfill my potential, because I actually, like, I don't want to coach. I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. I don't want to pay that tax requisite to become a Grand Slam champion. I'm just happy to be on tour and play. So I've got that point there. Does he actually want to win? Now, Lando says he wants to win, but then on the other side, he's doing all the contrary, right? He's doing all the things that like you would do if you don't want to win. The final point here is, and like I say, I'm spreading thin at the moment. Can Lando be a champion with Lando's personality? That's the other one. Is he too nice? Does he need to be harsher, and so on? So there's a lot there. The performance under pressure, prep, reflection, self-doubt, self-sabotage. Does he actually want to win? And then can he be a champion with his personality? Let's spend a bit of time on the preparation versus reflection piece. I'm going to play you a clip now. We'll listen to it. I think it was from one of his podcasts. And he just talks about how, like, you have a listen to it, let me know what you think, but he just talks about the preparation to the event and how he wants to play golf and go out to dinners and take his mind off it. And I'm there saying, man, that's not the mentality of a world champion. The mentality of a world champion is like, get into the details. Where's my next race? Where are my opportunities? Everything I talk about in the live stream tomorrow. Let me play you this now, and then you tell me what you think, all right?
Cool.
Such a beautiful thing.
Well, here's the thing. Do you think you overanalyze it?
I'm certainly an overthinker. I think when you're in the car, though, you don't often have a lot of time to overthink.
Well, Andrea Stella says these cars are so fast, you don't have time to think.
Yeah, so I certainly think off track, 100%. Off track, off track, I try hard to make myself disconnect from things and take my mind away. I have to put work in to try forget about a weekend and just kind of go and spend some time with my friends and do things. Like I've had to work on trying to disconnect myself so I can spend more time away, so I can come back and focus better rather than dwelling too much on certain scenarios.
How do you do that? Is it sport, bit of golf, bit of paddle?
It can be sport, and sometimes it's very simple things, and sometimes it's just being with my friends, and sometimes it's simple things, just going out for dinners with my team, or just doing things where so almost forget what I do, forget that I drive in Formula One, forget that I drive, and just really try and leave the world that I live in. I think it's because I care a lot about what I do, and therefore I'm always trying to think of, why did I do that? Why did I make that wrong decision? Why did I go too hard into this corner? Sometimes you're talking about like milliseconds of eagerness here or there, and you can pay the price, So it sounds always so simple in your mind, but it's therefore sometimes it's very difficult to find clear answers for it. But yeah, many different things, but both on and off the track.
So, Philippe, where do you sit on that? Like, I sit on that, and I think, like, geez, man, that doesn't sound good to me. That doesn't sound like someone who's, I want to focus on the next race. What do I need to do? Where's my strategy? How's my start going to be? If it rains, what am I going to do? Like, where's the opportunities? Where's the wet lines? What tires do we have? Like, this is all the stuff that you could be working on. And he's talking about dinners and golf, etc. Like, help me out here. I don't have a question for you, but is this correct? And if it's not, what can we do about it?
Yeah, look, there is a lot to unpack. I think one thing Lando does do well is he does what suits him, right? It's not, I think the solution here isn't like one size fits all. On the contrary, look, we look at someone like Max, and he does GT3 like sim racing and whatnot, or he's always, I mean, like we saw before he went to Nürburgring, full petrol, smashes out a freaking race lap record just for fun, right? I think that guy Max Verstappen just lives and breathes it, and I don't think that should be, yes, okay, look, he's a four times world champion, and should everyone follow suit? I mean, look, he's someone who's clearly almost obsessed with driving in any form, right? It's not just Formula One; it could be any form of racing. So I think it's kind of difficult to compare him to Max, because Max right now he's one of the greatest, right? He's up there with them. So I think with Lando, he's doing something right, which is
I'll just stop you for a sec there, because I don't want to compare him to Max. Is this approach the correct one?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just trying to, a long way of getting to the point I was trying to make was, I think with Lando is he's doing what works for him. I watched an interview of him recently with CNBC, and he talked about going to sleep before a race. And the woman interviewing was shocked. Like, how can you go to sleep before something so like invigorating, like a Formula One Grand Prix, right? And he goes, look, it calms me down, it keeps me chilled before the race, and that's better for me. The lower my heart rate is, the better. So yeah, the point I was trying to make was, I just think it's not one solution fits all. So I think for Lando, do we want to hear that? Do we want to hear that? I'm going for golf, or I'm going for dinner. I think just do what works for you. Does that mean he'll become someone like a 4 or 5 time consecutive world champion? Maybe not. I'm not saying he won't. I mean, we don't know. It's also how competitive the car is as well, obviously. But could he still be a world champion with that kind of like lifestyle? Yeah, I think so. I think it's just about getting the right balance that works for him. I agree with you. I think he does need to add, whether it's working with his technical team, with the engineers, working on his mindset, whatever it is. I think there are points where he can improve, but he's got to find a balance, because I think he's someone who, it can get a bit much for him. I think it was the Monaco qualifying, and there was another GP where he came out and said it was stressful. Look, full disclosure, I'm not a Formula One driver, so I would find it very stressful, but I wouldn't expect someone on Lando's level to say it was stressful. I mean, I can imagine other drivers are feeling that stress, but I don't think they probably feel it enough that they have to talk about it and say it after. And I think it kind of goes to your point of where he does these other things like going out for dinners or golf or paddle or whatever it is. I think that works for him, but I think in another world, I think Lando just has a lot of talent and raw speed, and that's why he's good with F1. But whether he's built in terms of the mentality to become a 4 or 5 time current world champion, I think there are points like we've mentioned where he could work on to improve there.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to contrast that against what Nico Rosberg did, for example, to win his world championship. It was all the sacrifices. I'm not hanging around with my partner. She's sleeping in a different room. I need to lose weight in this area. I need to redesign the steering wheel. I need to redesign my gloves. I need to strip the paint off my helmet. Like, it was all of this, and that's how he got it over the line, because he was, fighting against one of the greatest of all time, Lewis Hamilton. Then on the other side of the coin, you got Lando Norris saying, I just try to take my mind off the sport. I do what I can to escape F1. If that means look over this way and play a bit of golf or play a bit of tennis or go out to dinner with the team, that's what I'll do to take my mind off it. Philippe, that doesn't sound very good to me, mate. Come on.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. I just kind of want to be not too harsh on it, but no, look, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Martin and chat, but Nico Rosberg's dad was also a champion as well, right? So I think what probably hit for Nico was, look, his dad was a champion, and he probably deep down always wanted to be a champion, right? I mean, I haven't looked at enough kind of interviews of Lando or Nico early on in their career saying what their goals are, but I'm sure any driver on the grid would say they want to be a world champion, right? I think clearly what must have happened with Nico, and again, apologies if I'm wrong, but I think what he had about before 2016, was it 3 years of kind of facing Lewis, and it was Lewis won the championship, and it was close, right? They both had a great car, and it got close. And I think for Nico, it must have just been, look, if I don't, God knows how long we're going to have a competitive car for. But if I don't do everything that I need to do now in order to win this championship, then it may never come. He obviously accepted and acknowledged he's driving one of the best of all time in Lewis. I think what it is with Lando is that, last year was his first. I mean, last year was the first time he won his first Grand Prix, right? So, I mean, let's not be too harsh on him to go on and then win like a world championship in that year would have been quite difficult. But I do think fighting Max, to be fair, last year and now fighting Oscar, there are similarities. But I think Lando just needs to kind of want it really deep down to kind of win this championship. It's not going to be easy. Oscar's one of the hardest, and that's why I brought up Max. Max wasn't easy last year. I don't think Oscar's going to be easy at all this year. I mean, yeah, Max had the experience. They're both kind of going for this maiden world championship for each of them. But no, I do agree. I think if he wants to win this, he needs to accept it deep down and make those changes. But I do think for Lando, I think it is slightly double-edged. I think if he goes too hard, it gets too much. Could he probably hack it for the remainder of a season? Yeah, I think this season probably is his best chance with the regulation change next year. No one knows who's going to be most competitive. So even though he might have the kind of minerals to go and win a championship, will he have the car? So no, I do agree. I think if he needs to accept it and really make some kind of big changes in all sorts, not just mental. I think it is tactical, it is technical, probably physical as well. Again, I know you made a good point of no one's really lost one on physical, but like you said, Nico, I think I was reading that he stopped cycling to stop the muscle buildup in his thighs because he would save him like a tenth per lap or something. So that's what wins you championships, right? I mean, maybe it was just because that was against Lewis, and Lewis rarely makes mistakes. But you've got to make these minute changes which make a big change in the overall grand scheme of things.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to juxtapose like that with, let's say, Oscar, for example, because every time you're swinging a golf club, someone could be working. Every time you're going out to having a dinner, someone's working. Even every time you're in the gym doing the push-ups or whatever, someone's working technically. There's an opportunity cost to every single thing that you do. And I'm not sure whether Lando's aware of that, like how much wasted time there could actually be in his diary, and focusing on the more important aspects, technical, tactical, and mental, the ones that are actually going to serve you well and win you the championship. And if you do the prep, you find you don't need to do so much in the reflection piece. Let me just share, because I spoke about this in one of my live streams. I'm going to share screen and some of the, I'm not sure what they are, whether they're mental performance or not, but there's some really good comments there. Let me just share screen for a second and I'll show you guys. Mm-hmm. I'll show you what the comments were. We'll have a look at it together. Give me a sec. Stop presenting that one. Entire screen. It's going to be, yeah, it should be that one. There we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right, beautiful. So these are the comments that were on the live stream. So I'll read them out. This one's from PsychNerdCA, and I pinned it. And it says, Lando's coping strategies appear to consist of two extremes. Number one, overthinking, and number two, avoidance. Bang on. That's what I said about the preparation versus the reflection. There's avoidance, so there's no preparation. And then there's overthinking. This is terrible in my eyes, right? Unfortunately, neither of those are productive or helpful for overall mental health. In therapy, I tell my clients, exposure creates extinction. Martin's suggestion of addressing the fears and creating a plan to address possible concerns is a great example of that. Imaginal exposure is a great tool for addressing performance anxiety. Can you touch on that, Philippe? What's this exposure creates extinction piece? And do you agree with this overthinking and avoidance? It's like it's wrong on both sides. The prep's not being done, and then there's the overthinking, which is getting in the way of the prep for the next one.
Yeah, no, completely. I think that comment is bang on. I think being an overthinker myself, I have a bit of sympathy for Lando, but for sure, look, if we kind of cut straight to the point and we're talking about becoming world champions here, overthinking isn't going to help, right? You've got to just learn from it. I think the biggest thing with Lando is he doesn't look at his mistakes as learning opportunities. And I think that's what other greats have done. And that's what you've got to do, whether it's me or you trying to improve ourselves. You can't, if you overthink any small mistake, especially in F1, right? One small lapse of concentration can finish your race off. It has huge kind of implications. Overthinking isn't going to help. You've got to just break it down into smaller parts, learn from it, and apply it, and keep learning. I think to the comments point as well. Sorry, to avoidance. Let me speak on that as well. I think, look, until it was what I said before. He needs to accept what he wants and then move on from there. And it's the whole point of avoidance. You can't just shy away from last week and think, oh, okay, look, nothing happened. It's all good. Like, let's just move on. This is a fresh weekend. Yes, there is a benefit to that, of course, just kind of going in with a fresh mindset. But you have to look at those mistakes and you have to learn from them. In terms of the exposure, so that was actually one of the big things that I would work with Lando on. If I was his mindset coach, one of the kind of I'd probably use it as more for prep than reflection, but obviously the information would come from the reflection of a race. So for me, it's all about visualization, right? So the mind is so powerful that you don't really know the difference, or your mind doesn't know the difference. We consciously do, but subconsciously, we don't know the difference between a memory, a thought, or if something actually happened. If you continue to repeat that, your brain only gets stronger. Your reflexes will become a bit better when you're thinking about it, because your body, your nerves, and everything's kind of moving towards that. So in terms of the exposure, this is a great thing, and this is something I would work with him on. So it's like, I would get him to visualize he's in the car, he's in the cockpit, and he's in Q3, for example. A minute to go, he's P2, but he's chasing pole, right? Get him to close his eyes and really imagine it, right? Imagine feeling the steering wheel, imagine being in the car, seeing the crowd, the weather, like really, the more vivid, the better, basically. So for me, it's about firstly just positive visualization. So go through the motions, go through the turns, go through your weak points, go through the your good points. Think of every single thing that you're doing. Number one, that's good for your physical body, but it's also good for your mind. But where I would work with him on, and I think this is where it's kind of the biggest amount of value for Lando, is kind of hone in on those weak points. So whether it's a specific turn that he's not good at, or he keeps making mistakes, visualize that going wrong, right? Or, is it that he's got like Max or Oscar on his tail chasing him up to that turn, and he's gone degrading tires. We know how good the McLaren is with saving its tires, but let's just say, for argument's sake, he's got someone up. So put that pressure in, right? So slowly expose him to these pressure moments, right? Because that's obviously what that's going to help him with. He won't perform well straight away in that visualization, but slowly over time, he'll start to build kind of the stronger mentality to be able to deal with it when it actually does happen. I'd probably go a step further with him as well and almost get a bit of biofeedback. So maybe strap a heart monitor onto him as well, so we can use that to see if his heart is raising in these certain moments and whatnot. So I think, yeah, it's a great point from that comment. I think it's bang on. I think exposure is definitely something that works with Lando. Like we said, in conjunction with a few other things, where he should be using his time maybe a bit more wisely if he wants to go all out and win the championship.
Okay, beautiful. So look, agree with all that. So how do we balance that? How do we balance the visualization exercises away from the let's say that's what we're prescribing here, to get a feeling for that pressure before it's match day, right? To just get accustomed to that situation, measure the heart rate, measure the response and how he felt and whatever. How do we balance that with the dinners and the golf?
We don't. If he wants to, look, let's get straight to the point, right? We don't. If he wants to win this championship, I was probably being too kind before and saying, look, it's Lando, let him do what he wants. But if we're going out to win a world championship, if that's 100% the goal here,
we are. What else are we here to do? Yeah, we're here to win.
Yeah, that's my point, right? I think, look, if you want to be a Nick Kyrgios, that's fine. And I've got a massive respect for Nick Kyrgios. I think he's an amazing player. He's a good personality for tennis. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But I think what Nick did well is he just admitted it, right? So he puts it out there so no one, I think people get frustrated because we know how much talent he has. And it's the same with Lando, right? But look, if we're talking serious and he wants to win the world championships, cut it all out. Cut it all out. Look, there's only, what month are we now? August. There's what, like 5 months to the end of we're almost at halfway point, let's call it, right? He's up there. He's there. He's got it within his grasp. This is going to probably be his best opportunity, right? Like if we look at next year, we don't know. The McLaren may be the fastest, but conversely, it may not. So I think if I was Lando's coach right now, I tell him drop everything, drop your dinners. You can hack it for 5 months. Like drop all sorts. Let's pack out this now, right? So whether it's technical, whether it's physical, whether it's, I mean, obviously I would work on him with mental, but there is no balance. If we're going all out, cut it all out. Let's just go hard. This is your chance. And I would bring that point to him. I think that would probably be the hardest thing. Let's be honest, is kind of convincing Lando that look, we need to step you away. Yeah, you can show him the glitz and glamour of winning a world championship, but I think it's something that helps Lando going to these dinners and thingy. But it's not helping him win a world championship. So it's about convincing him here.
That's better, Philippe. Let's sack it off, mate. Let's win a championship and we can relax afterwards, right? Like even when Nico won his championship, he was like, I didn't feel happy. I just felt relieved. Like it was just because, you know, you can imagine the work and pressure that went into it. Now he's happy. Now he's walking around like I'm the 2016 Formula One world champion. Thank you very much. So like, that's just, there is a tax to be paid to be a champion, whether you like it or not. And I guess my whole question to you in this segment of the podcast has been like, like is Lando prepared to pay that tax? Can he pay it? Does he want to pay it? The Nick Kyrgios piece, like I've got massive respect for Nick from just saying from the outset, like I'm not, don't confuse me for Roger Federer. I'm not Roger Federer. Like I'm Nick and I'm here to have fun. I just want to entertain. And I'm like, all right, cool. That you do you. Like, and everyone should just lay off Nick for that reason. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone has to show up to work and want to be a world champion, you know, but with Lando, it's different. I think he's always said that's his dream and he wants to. He's never come out and said, I don't want to win races and championships. Let me share screen again because there was another comment that we just didn't get across to. Give me a sec. All right, so the second one, I'll read it out to you. Lando focuses his energy on the uncontrollable things, and then he felt tired and tired to not think about the controllable ones. So that he's essentially saying he's thinking about what happened last weekend, the whole overthinking piece, and not focusing on the here and now, what he can do for next weekend, which is bang on. It just amazes me again that these athletes don't reach out for help, even how much resources are within their reach. Since Martin earlier videos about mentality, I just research on sports psychology to apply in my life and my study. So this guy's clearly proactive. It helped me enormously with my unemployment and the up and down ride that comes with it. From there, I knew Bill Beswick and Tom Bates, who with Team GP and many British sport teams, they worked with Adam Peaty, David Beckham, etc. These sports psychologists have so many useful strategies and lessons to help athletes reach their goals and dig themselves out of trouble. If I know them, I don't understand why no one around Lando point him towards them. And yes, I agree with Martin. There is a need for balance, but only after you've done the work. Adam Peaty talked about playing lots of Xbox, switching off after training. Similarly, Joshua Waitzkin said the most world-class performers have the ability to go from operating 10 out of 10 intensity to completely shutting down a full 0 out of 10. They rarely stay around 5 or 6 because that middle zone isn't efficient or sustainable. That's perfect. And he summed up my position because a lot of people are like, oh, no, balance is really important. You can't kill yourself. And I'm saying like, you've just got to take your profession. You've just got to take your profession as a profession and be professional in your profession. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying do the Nico Rosberg thing because that's quite an extreme example. He was losing sleep and it wasn't healthy for him. I'm saying just do a little bit of prep, mate. You know what I mean? You're an F1 driver. You know, pull the track map out and have a look to see what technical corners you have. Do you know what I mean? Like something like that is a lot more than the golf and the dinners. Let's start there. Like we've got to do a lot of work before we start talking about, okay, this is too much now. This is mental health. This, do you know what I mean? Like we're nowhere near that extreme. I think the drivers, I feel like on the grid, they're just too soft. Like they're not doing much work at all. If I can show you a few pictures from some of the guys around in the off season, this is Franco Colapinto, someone who's about to lose his seat at Alpine, playing table tennis there. He was on almost like a working holiday visa situation. This looked like an absolute joke to me. He posted it on his Instagram, and I'm like, Franco, I like you, mate. You're a good guy. You're a good driver, but do some bloody work, mate. This is not preparation. So back to the comment there. I think he summed it up really well. And Bill Beswick, I've actually followed for quite a while. And he talks about the whole mental, technical, tactical, mental, and so on. So with Lando, it's like, I don't feel like we're in the waters of preparation, let alone in the deep waters of burnout. So how do you see that?
I think first and foremost, I couldn't see the name of the comments, but you're the guys in the comments and the guys and girls in the comments obviously know what they're talking about because
they're machines, eh? Yeah, these are bang on, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone was to check out my kind of videos after this, I talk about controlling the controllables all the time. And I couldn't agree more. If someone knows Lando, please give him a call. I can teach him this if he needs to. I'll work pro bono, no drama. But no, look, I couldn't agree more. I think, look, it first comes with acceptance. Do you actually really want to do this, and are you prepared to pay that price? Right, that price is going to change every day. It's about discipline. It's not about motivation. You've got to turn up every day. So let's just say, for argument's sake, he does accept it. Yeah, of course, I agree as well. Nico Rosberg, complete kind of far example. So we're not near the mental health aspect of it yet. And of course, if you start to kind of have that's different. Then you can find a balance. But if he really wants to go out to win this world championship, yeah, like especially now with momentum being on his side, with the summer break coming up and whatnot, but like 2 GPs coming up, like he's got everything on his side. You don't know when it's going to come back. Just go all out. And I agree. We kind of all accept it into our lives, like that comment said there. If someone, like, anyone can kind of pick up a book or research, sports psychology or just psychology in general. And I think this, for me, is why mindset is so important, right? Like, your body doesn't have a brain of its own. Your body follows your brain. We're with our brains all the time. You're thinking all the time, regardless of whether it's subconscious or conscious. So you need to really analyze those thoughts and think, are they supporting you, or are they not supporting you? And when you realize that is actually under your control, and even the subconscious, of course, subconscious isn't under your actual control, but we can do work on that, like repetition and playing it while you sleep to kind of rewire your subconscious, break it down and rewire it. But it's to the comments point, right? Like you have all this time, you're choosing to do certain things. So you're choosing to go paddle, you're choosing to go for dinner. And to your point, that is a point lost. It's not right now on a Grand Prix, of course, but that's going to have an effect when it comes to race day. So you've got to take every single opportunity. And whether it is sleep, right? Some people need more sleep, some people need less sleep. So whether it's eating the right foods, whether it's watching, I go quite extreme on this with mindset. And my wife, if you're watching, I hope you are, she probably has enough when I say this. I stop her from watching certain programs like Love Island, because that is to that level of diet, right? Your diet isn't just what you intake through your mouth, it's what you listen to, is what you're watching. We have mirror neurons. You will follow what you watch, right? So if you're intaking any sort of negativity, it's going to have an effect on what you do. I'm not saying sit there and listen to positivity all day. You need a break, of course, but just be mindful of what you're bringing into your life. It will make a massive change. It won't happen tomorrow, it might not happen next week, but the more time and effort, which is, I think, to your point, Martin, here, is the more effort and time he puts in and switches out the things he can change, like the paddles. Look, I'm sure if he made all those changes with a few here or there with tactical and technical, Lando's world champion. We know that, right? And I think that's what Oscar almost has on him. I don't know how much Oscar is putting into kind of working on these things, but he already has that kind of base level of his thought. Like, even if he has a bad weekend, Oscar's kind of point is to talk about, like, yeah, it wasn't a great weekend, but I got the result. Or he doesn't look at his kind of mistakes as bad as Lando does.
Yeah, really interesting. So you've just touched on it, but my next point that I was going to ask you was the self-talk, the self-doubt, the self-sabotage, what you say. And I think you addressed it by saying diet is not just what we eat, it's what we hear and say and see. That's part of the diet, right? Now, just before I come to that, yeah, the guys have been, obviously they've had a few weeks off now between the last race, and it's interesting to see what they've been up to. I showed you a few pictures of what he's posted. That's all I can see. What he's been up to is just kind of mucking around in some holiday house, doing some sleep, a bit of table tennis, and a bit of physical preparation. Nothing to note on the mental, tactical, or technical side. That's not to say he's not doing it, by the way, but you know, we see some stuff there. Liam Lawson posted a photo at the golf with the caption "recharge on" or "rest week" or something like that. Oscar Piastri, you guys may have seen, was in the simulator. You see his camera fall over. He was doing a few laps around Spa. I'm not going to say that's driver preparation, but hey, the sim's a better place to be than, you know, at a table tennis table, for example. And Lando hasn't posted anything, and neither has Max, which is good. That tells me at least he's got his head half down, maybe not fully, but at least, you know, he's on the right track. I'd rather them not post than post garbage. Yeah. Ideally, yeah, post a few lap times on the lap board would be the best thing to post. But I'm just to give the audience and yourself a bit of context and my standpoint. I'm very strict with this, man. You're in Formula One, like. This is the top upper echelon. There are kids that would dream of your position in Formula One. Like there are no excuses for you to not give 100%. Whether you give 110% and kill yourself for the sport, different story. That's different. But give yourself the best chance to win and do the prep, right? Golf and table tennis don't, like, that's for me, cuz that's rubbish, cuz come on. That's not, you wouldn't expect that in lower formula, let alone Formula One. That's not, yeah, that doesn't sit well with me. And like I say, I'm very strict. It would be 5 minutes for lunch and then back to work. So that's, let alone dinners and all this sort of thing. Okay, so talk to me about the self-doubt, self-sabotage piece with Lando and with Charles as well, because we hear it through Charles's radio a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like...
I'm just going to share... Yeah, go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm just going to share my screen because I'm a visual learner. So just give me a heads up when you can see it. Hopefully you can now.
Yeah, beautiful.
Cool, brilliant. So... yeah, I'm a visual learner, so hopefully for any of those of you guys that are watching, this kind of rings true for you as well. So I've got self-doubt at the top here, which you can see, hopefully you can see I'm kind of highlighting that at the top there. And for me, self-doubt is the root cause, right? The root cause could come from a fear of failure. It could come from, you know, a fear of, you know, imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not good enough. But essentially, self-doubt is a result of a root cause of a fear, right? And that leads into the self-sabotage. And we see that, to your point, Martin, quite heavily with Charles and Lando. And I do think, you know, some may hate me in the comments for saying this, but that's why both of them aren't world championship champions yet. I mean, you can take away the fact that, you know, Charles hasn't arguably had, you know, the car to do it in, especially all season long. I know 2022 Ferrari had a decent car, 23, end of 24, but all season long they haven't. So take that aside, I think it's that killer instinct that someone like Max, Lewis, Schumacher, Senna, Vettel, all those guys, they weren't there to make friends. They were there to kind of Martin's point, to just win, right? Why else are you there? You're not there to have dinners and go play tennis, right? So for me, I think this is a big thing that was happening, especially with Lando before. I do think there is a slight change, so I'll go into that in a second. But yeah, for sure with Lando and Charles, I think the self-doubt leads to self-sabotage, and as we can see, it leads to missed opportunities and underperformance. And we know why, right? We've probably, I don't know if any of you in the chat have experienced this. I'm sure you have. Like I've experienced it a few times, right? I remember a young age going into football tryouts, and I just didn't believe in myself. That caused me to not perform at my best, and that's what caused the underperformance. But just to go a bit further, I think you can see this little kind of lightning cloud here. And I think the breakthrough for Lando specifically, if we just focus on him a bit, came in Canada. I do feel like Charles is yet to have that kind of real big, strong breakthrough. But again, I think that comes with having a car that can kind of actually compete for championships. But I think what I saw, and I think this goes for anyone, so anyone in the chat, if you're kind of going through some sort of self-doubt or self-sabotage, I think this is a very high level kind of overview of this, but just as a beginning, this is what you can work on. So I think what Lando's doing well right now is acceptance and moving on. So for anyone who's seen his kind of interviews post that crash in Canada, he really took the responsibility for it. He kind of took it on himself. Look, I'm sure he had the debrief with the team, and he couldn't not accept it, but nonetheless, he accepted it and he's moved on. I've got self-doubt kind of very shaded here, because I still think there is a little bit of self-doubt in Lando's mind, and there'll probably always be self-doubt in anyone's mind going through this, but it's kind of shaded out because it's obviously not as strong as it was before. But really, from that acceptance and moving on, and again, bearing in mind this is very high level, you start to change the way you look. And this goes to your comments point earlier on the video about it's those controllables, right? You can control to accept it. You're in control of that thought and that decision and moving on. And then as you start to see, it becomes a snowball effect, right? You start to look more positively at a weekend, whether or not it's a difficult track for you, or the turns are difficult for you. I'm not great on the technical side, but I'm sure Martin can let you know on that. And then you start to learn from mistakes, and I think that's key here, right? Learning from the mistakes, where I think Lando didn't, and probably Charles, probably less so to an extent, doesn't really look at those mistakes as, okay, this wasn't great. If anything, I'd probably say Charles probably does it better than Lando. I think Lando definitely is someone who would just, again, to the comments point, overthink it, right, and not think of the learning. But it's taking that, reframing that. It's that mental, and again, this isn't easy to do, but over time and working with it over days or weeks, months with a coach, you can learn to reframe that and see that silver lining. And that's the key. That's when you start to really see this change and you apply it to everything you do in your life. And ultimately, that's what comes to the better performances. So yeah, hopefully that was just a nice little kind of visual breakdown for you guys to see how I look at the self-sabotage piece. I'll stop sharing my screen now, but
I was going to say,
yeah,
just leave it up if you can. Maybe just share again for a second.
give a sec. Okay, you should see it coming up now.
Yeah, beautiful. So you spoke about the silver lining piece. So that reminds me of a reel that you put out where Max was, yeah, it's all good. I can try to have a good race tomorrow. We'll see what we can do from there. And then Lando was like, this is all wrong. I'm all wrong. There was that reel. Maybe you can talk us through that one, because that's, talk us through that reel and where that fits in here. And then secondly, if you just scroll up, the self-doubt, because self-sabotage, we can almost rule that out. It's a function of self-doubt. So the problem we need to solve for, according to your diagram, is the self-doubt one. Just talk to me about that reel where Max was remaining positive first, and then we'll tackle self-doubt.
Yeah, of course. So for those of you that haven't seen it, it's on my Instagram and TikTok, but it's pinned on my Instagram. So if you want to see it, it's probably one of the most viewed. And I have had a lot of hate from Lando fans about this. But look, with if we kind of cut into the point and talk about world championships here, this is what we're here to do. This is what Formula One is. We're not here to, in the words of Conor McGregor, not take part. We're here to take over type thing. So I think to that point, and I agree to some of the points in the comments that this is, almost directly after qualifying, and you're in the heat of the moment and everything else. And I know some people have said it's kind of Max is just trained better in PR. I don't really agree with that point, because I think with both Lando and Max, you get honesty. So kind of taking all that apart and taking, even kind of addressing the point of it's in the heat of the moment, it's just qualifying is just past. I think where you see Max and Lando, the difference is that Max, let's start there, right? He didn't, well, I think he finished fifth, and yeah, okay, that might have been where his car could have finished. That could have been all he could have got. But regardless, the question which I was posed to him, which I thought was quite almost a negative one, it was almost like, okay, so what's your thoughts from? But I guess it wasn't negative, but it wasn't positive. It was fairly neutral, I suppose. But it was like, what are you going to do from here tomorrow? You're P5. And for me, I think the biggest thing, and this is something I've had to learn myself. So anyone out there who kind of responds to things quickly, take this on board. This is great. Just take a moment. You don't need to respond straight away. Yes, don't let it become an awkward silence, but just take that moment. Actually think before you respond. Don't just respond for the sake of it. And I think that's what Max does really well. He also compartmentalizes really well, and I think that's a separate thing. But he just looks at it like, fine, I've accepted it. So let me just scroll down to this point. Max has accepted he's in P5, right? There's nothing he can do. Okay. He looks at things straight away positively. He's like, okay, I'll do what I can do. Everyone's going to perform. The team's going to perform. I'll do my best. That's what I'm here to do. And that leads to a better performance. I can't remember exactly where he finished, and it might not have done, but we know with Formula One that has to do with the car. Whereas conversely with Lando, it's the self-doubt, it's the self-sabotage that just really, really like doesn't do well for him. Because the reason why I said sorry, I thought the question to Max was negative. It wasn't, it was neutral, but the question, I think, and the follow-up to Lando was actually positive. So I can't remember the exact question, but I'm going to ad-lib here a little bit. But they say to Lando, look, that wasn't your best performance. Why was that? That's a neutral one, that's fine. But he blames himself. He literally says this. He points at himself and says, me. Fine, you can say there's a bit of acceptance there, sure, but it goes to self-sabotage very quickly when you start to just put it on you. Take a moment, fine, accept that, yes, it wasn't my best performance, but you can't let that lead into self-sabotage. I know that's easier said than done, guys, and this is something that happens over time. So I'm not saying to Lando, switch your brain that quickly, but you've got to then look at it positively. I think from memory, he might have still qualified, P3, P4, whatever, but regardless of where he would have qualified, he's got a rocket ship, and he needs to look at that. He does, fortunately for him, have the car, right? He knows his race pace is going to outbeat probably most of the cars on the grid, but his teammate, unless he's on an off day. So that's what Lando did quite a lot. It's the self-doubt, it's the self-sabotage, and what the commentator does to kind of spin it for him positively and try and bring out that positivity for him. She said, look, we've seen you get pole before, so we know you've got it in you. So it's almost, for me, that's almost like helping him to say, look, Lando, try and look at the positives here. You've got that performance in you, right? But I think, look, this was early on in the season, and he just kind of shrugs it off, walks away very quickly. And I get it. Look, you are in the heat at the moment. I'll give you a slight benefit of the doubt. But look, getting to the point if he wants to be a champion. And he's getting better at this. So look, kudos to him. I do think there was a breakthrough in Canada. But for someone like Charles as well, albeit he's not in a competitive car, let's say. But let's say he does get a competitive car at the end of this year with the upgrades, or next year. These are the minute details where it comes to mindset that they will start to change. You might not see it straight away, but over time, you start to build this, you start to speak about this. To my earlier point, it's all about the diet. So what you're feeding yourself, what you're seeing. Look, social media is a big thing as well, right? If these guys are consuming social media, looking at themselves, reading the comments, none of this is great. Block out the noise, tunnel vision, go all in, bring yourself positivity, listen to Martin on the technical side, listen to Philippe for the mindset side, and that's what'll make them a champion, right? But yeah, that's my spiel on that.
Beautiful. Stop sharing for a sec. We'll come back to us. Thanks for that, Philippe. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, we're going to take your questions in just a minute. I've got one more topic that I want to cover. So if you want to start whacking your questions in, please do so. The one topic left that I want to cover, well, it's kind of two, but just very briefly. Kim Illman recently put out a video talking about photographers and how much they get paid. And I was shocked to learn that drivers have their own photographers. That's how seriously they take their social media. Some of them have their own photographers that they travel around with them. Now, I don't know how many have their own driver coaches or mental specialists. I know they've all got a pair of hands. They've all got a physio as well, or at least the team does. But to have your own, this is not the team. The team have a photographer as well. And the driver also has like one that they've employed to follow them around. That this is what in Kim's video. Kim mentioned guys like Leclerc had his own photographer paid by Charles. Kimi Antonelli, he's a rookie, he's got his own photographer. Like, surely that's the last guy you want to be bringing around with you. I don't know. Lando's got his own photographer as well. These are three guys that you could argue, could do without the photography and do with a little more technical work. I'm not sure what my question is here, but why do you think that's the case?
Look, I think money talks. Basically, I think this is what it comes down to. People know the power of social media. Look, we all know F1, and I'm not talking as a sport, but financially probably wasn't in the best position before the whole, I can't remember the name of the guys that took them over, but the guys that took them over, and the Netflix show came about and everything. We've seen a massive upturn financially for teams as well as the drivers, and a lot more attention. So there's obviously that aspect to it, right? They probably don't know how long their careers are going to last in F1. Maybe some of them. I mean, someone like Kimi, we expect to go on for a long, long time. But it's money talks, isn't it? It's but this, again, bringing it back to mentality. This is, if you want to become a world champion, your focus is in the wrong place. And I totally agree with you. When looking at these drivers, I wouldn't kind of give a crap about hiring a photographer. I mean, yeah, maybe, but let someone on my management side deal with it. I don't want you to kind of hinder anything that I'm doing. Don't stop me. Like my focus is one thing, and that's to become a champion and destroy the competition, right? And I think so. I think money does talk, and I think a lot of it is about, you know, they want to get a personality out there, get some more endorsements. They come on a show, they might become, I don't know, a movie star, whatever, right? But I think if we're talking purist and to go to win here, I think it kind of draws me to a video. I think it was Miami. There's a video. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Martin. Max gets to the track and he gets there early, and he kind of says to a camera really quickly, he's like, 7-time world champion putting out Lewis, 4-time world champion first here. And I think that's just you. That's why they're the champions, right? It's not just that they arrive early, obviously, but it's the discipline, it's the commitment that they live their life with. That even in kind of off season, they're not doing what Franco's doing. I mean, they might be chilling, of course. You got to have your downtime, but unless it's like trying to show to your competition that you're just chilling and but you're really working hard. I don't know. I don't think Franco's really thinking of that, especially in his position. I agree. I think it's just get to the point, hire these kind of people that can help you improve. You don't know how long your F1 career is gonna last, so go all in and go to win, right?
Yeah, I never understood it. I'm just like, mate, the best way to get sponsorships or money, if that's what you're suggesting, is to win some races, mate. Like, you don't need sack the photographer off. He's a waste of time. In that example that you presented there with Max saying, see, he found the nearest videographer or photographer and said, do you see that? Like, come here, have a look at this, because he doesn't have one following him or whoever was filming, whatever. Yeah. He's like, check this out. And then Max just walked off like, that's all you need to see, get out of here. You know what I mean? That was class from Mac.
Yeah. I do think, sorry, just to add as well, I do think in this day and age as well, because of, and I do think partly of it is social media. So I'm 33, for those of you that are wondering like how old I am and what kind of era I'm talking about. I grew up on like the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Schumachers. So I kind of look up to those guys. I like the raw, the just straight to the point. I'm not here to have a good time. I'm here to win. And that's what I think we're trying to allude to here as well. Like, you're in F1 to win a championship. Great if you're there to just be a B driver and you want to become like or you accept it and you tell people very early on, look, you're just here for the money and what else. But I think, look, if you're serious about winning, I think we have come to kind of like a kind of weird place where we're accepting of like mediocre kind of. We all love F1 or any sport for the rawness and the something that we can't do, right? Like the stuff we were talking about, like Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic, whoever, Michael Jordan, Max Verstappen, Lewis. We can't do the things they do, and that's why we look at them with so much awe and respect, and we're thinking, wow. And I think that's what we need to bring back in sport. Bring back that killer instinct. Bring back world champions that go all out. It's inspirational, motivational.
Mate, it's no wonder Max is so much better. Like, all these other guys just mucking around the whole time. Max is the only one that's seemingly dedicated to his profession. Like, obviously there's more. Like, George is great as well, but I'm exaggerating here. It's no wonder that he's so much better. All he does is drive for a living and sack off everything else, you know? So
yeah.
Okay, I wanted to just, guys, if you do have questions, like I say, whack them in the chat, because one more topic I just want to cover off. Carlos Sainz, in the High Performance podcast recently, I was listening to it. And the very first question from, I think his name is Jake Humphrey, said, you could probably get offered to do a lot of podcasts. Why did you say yes to this one? And Carlos, God bless him, he goes, well, I like talking about sports, fitness, maybe sports psychology. So if it's that, then I will enjoy it. And the reason I say bless him is because fitness, like he's linking high performance to everything he just mentioned. He goes, if this is going to be a high performance podcast talking about fitness, he's thinking blood type, blood pressure, heart rate, VO2 max, this, that. Like, that's all garbage, Carlos. The reason you didn't get points in Silverstone had nothing to do with any of that. You know, that you finished 12th, Alex finished 8th, so you sack that off straight away. He goes, then I'm going to enjoy it. He moves on, he starts talking about Alex Albon, how they're working so well together and how their sole intention is to work together to make the car better. And once the car is better, they'll be able to compete for points or podiums or wins. He never mentioned driving technique up to this point. And then he goes on to say, like they speak about Lewis Hamilton and so on. He goes on to say, I never thought that I would lose my seat. Like that was just a surprise to me. And I'm here thinking, let me just read out the stats for Carlos Sainz head-to-head with Charles Leclerc 2021 to 2024. He was obviously outperformed by Leclerc. And my philosophy has always been, if you're being outperformed by your teammate, you are constantly at risk. This is Formula One. This is not like, this is not UNICEF over here. So for him to say all of those things, like the fitness piece, even the sports psychology piece, I'd argue like more the technicals got to be the primary focus, then followed by the psychology, then followed by the physical side. Then he's about Alex making the car better, and I'm like, and then I never thought I'd lose my seat. Well, the reason you lost your seat, Carlos, is because the wins head-to-head was Leclerc 6-4. The poles head-to-head was Leclerc 16-9. Let me just share screen so we can talk to this together. All right, can you see that on the screen?
Yep.
The reason you lost your seat, Carlos, was because the wins head-to-head was 6-4. The poles head-to-head was 19-6. The podiums was 31-25. Leclerc was classified ahead 44-26. Leclerc qualified ahead 57-32. Leclerc race laps ahead of the other person was 2,799 versus 1,701. And the points at the end of the day was 1,029 to Charles and 900 to 5. Why were you surprised you lost your seat? You're clearly like, what are we doing here, mate? So this photo, courtesy of the race, by the way, guys. So, mate, like, how do I say this nicely, Philippe?
I don't think there is a way to say it nicely. I think, look, F1 is probably the most cutthroat sport, right? Look, I watch a ton of sports, and you see kind of athletes not performing in a football match, and I see it kind of over and over again. I'm like, God, I mean, they might get cut from, the first 11 or something, but they very quickly get back in the team. F1 is, like you said, if you're not beating your teammate, you're out. Just look at the history of F1,
or at least at risk, Yeah,
right. I mean, look, there's three. Am I wrong? 3 world champions on the grid: Lewis, Max, Alonso. So already, if you're underperforming, in my head, I'm thinking, right, Max might have been a different animal. Alonso, okay, he's a bit older and whatnot, but he's still got it there. But Lewis and Max were always going to be lurking anyway. So for any of these top teams, right? Let's take the midfield out of this. Let's look at the top guys. Any of those start to underperform, they're not going to look at, I mean, they may look at like a complete B driver just to support their A driver. Maybe that's the case. But with those guys lurking around, you've got to be on your toes. And I think, look, my point may be slightly controversial. I do think F1, we know, has a slight nepotism problem. It's kind of a lot of privileged, rich kind of folks in there. I mean, look, I know Lewis didn't really come from much. I know Alonso didn't come from much. To the point, I know Max's dad was obviously, a former Formula One driver. But I think what that kind of coming from nothing, or the upbringing, for example, because I've kind of done a fair amount of research on Max, so I can talk about that. I think that coming from nothing like Lewis and Alonso, and almost having the upbringing Max did from his father, that builds that resilience, that builds that killer mindset in your head that, it's if you lose, like Max's dad kind of, I think the story was he left him at a petrol station or something because he came like second or something, and there was another one where his fingers were cold when he was go-karting when he's young, and his dad goes, put your fingers on the exhaust. Like, it's just like a no sympathy approach. And I'm not saying that, I mean, look, kudos to all the other guys. I know Lando, Behrman, and all these guys, they come from a lot of money, but I think with that comes a bit of softness. And look, does that mean you can't be a champion? I don't think it means you can't. I think you'd be very lucky to get it if you're fighting people like the Maxes, like the Lewises, like the Alonsos, or whoever. To Sainz, I don't know massively about his kind of background and whatnot, but I know his dad was a kind of former rally driver and whatnot. So there's a slight bit of, I guess, nepotism to an extent. And I just think if you want to secure your seat, focus on performance. If you want to, like to your earlier point, get more endorsements or whatever it is, focus on your performance. Whether it's technical, whether it's physical, whether it's mental. Obviously, I'm going to argue mental's like the most. You'll probably argue technical is. I think it's a bit of that softness and that resilience and kind of mindset of it's sharks out there. It's a shark infested water, and I need to survive. So I need to become the biggest great white shark of them all, right? So that's what I would be telling him.
It's funny you mentioned that Max got dropped off at a petrol station. That's the first I've heard of that one. I didn't know. Is that
No
true?
way. So I could be, slightly wrong on the details. I'm not exactly sure, but I've read like a lot of stories. I think he came like, I don't know, second, third, or fourth. I've seen it in a lot of comments. To be fair, I don't know if I've actually ever seen Max per se say. I think he might have been like, quite an early documentary. I don't know if it was a petrol station or something like that, but he was on the way home with his dad. So supposedly his dad didn't talk to him at all in the journey home. I think so. His dad goes to fill up the car, whatever they were with in petrol. I think Max goes in and he obviously comes back to pick him up 20, 30 minutes later or whatever. But apparently he left him there. And, a lot of people in the comments were like, on other videos where I've seen this, they're like, um, this is why Max is aggressive. This is why Max is that. And yeah, okay, maybe. But I do think this is also why Max is just a killer on the track. And this is why, in the good sense, in terms of why he's so focused, why he's so almost perfect, right? We look at Silverstone, you had all these guys, purple sector, blah, blah, blah. Lewis comes out with the purples. And then it's almost inevitable. It's like Thanos, like for the Marvel fans out there. He's inevitable. You see Max come. When Lewis went green, I think we all knew it was Max. And I genuinely think, obviously, of course, with the hours he puts into the technical, the physical, the tactical. But I think for me, it's just to keep your mentality, to not make any mistakes. That's what it comes down to, right? So, so apparently that's the story. I mean, have a look at it post the call and let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it. The reason that I pick you up on that is because my childhood hero is Roger Federer. I've followed him. I know almost everything about him. I was actually privileged to meet him in Perth in 2018 and have a little chat, which was like a life moment for me. His dad's similar story. I can't remember. Roger was mucking up at training. He left one of these Swiss coins. I can't remember the pence or whatever it was on the table. And he said to Roger, "I'll see you at home." And then his dad just left. And Roger's like, "There's no way my dad would just, what do I do?" And it was like an hour or 2 hours away from home. And then same sort of thing, because he was trying to teach him. And just now that I think about it as well, I've been getting into wine a lot lately. I think I told you on WhatsApp. There's a thing that says, don't water the vines and the grapes. Let them dig deeper into the ground with the roots and search for that water. That produces better grapes and better wine. I 100% align with you there, Philippe. I agree with you. You're nodding your head. Did you know that one about the grapes?
I didn't, but I love the analogy, man. I was just in pure, like, that was great. That was great.
Yeah, don't water them. They like to work hard and they produce a better fruit off the back of it. All right, let's take your questions, guys. So whack them in now, like I said before in the chat. And I'll just read out the first one here. It comes from Rosa Cabero. How do you prevent your personality from affecting your mental state? And do certain personalities have a higher probability of succeeding in sports over others? What is this personality? I'll just read it again. So how do you prevent your personality from affecting your mental state? I guess it comes back to that question, like, with Lando's personality, can he win the world championship, or does he need to adjust that? So I won't take over the question because that was one of mine that we were going to talk about. But the question is, do certain personalities have a higher probability of succeeding than others? And what is this personality?
So I think, yes, certain personalities are more likely to succeed but it goes beyond sport, but of course in sport too. And just remind me of the beginning part of that question.
Yep. So it says, how do you prevent your personality from affecting your mental state?
Yeah, look, I think this all goes to what your goal is, right? I think, full disclosure, I'm probably someone that would go all in, but like 60%. Like you've got someone like Max who's 100% all in, world champion, whatnot. I think it really depends on your goal. So let's just, we're on a Formula One podcast, let's bring it to Formula One. If you are someone who, has a chance to win, let's just talk about Lando here, or even Oscar, because, they're both gunning for it. And obviously to your point, Martin, as well, can Lando win with that personality? I think if Lando was to accept and say, look, I just want to be like Nick Kyrgios and I'm here for a good time. Look, that's all. Don't pressure me. I think we'd all jump off his back and say cool, and the what if questions could come up. But if you want to win, I think your personality may have to go. I think there is a long-term problem with that. That if your personality isn't the kind of cutthroat, fully focused, goes all out, cold turkey, then of course, if you've got that personality, to the second point, I'll go on to that. But if your personality is someone who likes to relax a lot, likes the leisurely side of life, likes to binge watch TV or have candy floss, I don't know, whatever on a weekend, that will affect your personality. So I think for me, if I was working with someone, it'd be hard determined are they to actually win something. So going back to Lando, I would be telling him right now, this is your best chance. Do you want to become a world champion or not? Sell that to him, make him accepting of becoming a world champion. And I would almost push his personality. I would kind of push him to his limits to go win that. And I do think you do need to kind of shy away from his personality. To your point, Martin, I think he can win, but to really go out and win this and win it convincingly and go on to win more, he needs to cut out this kind of playing golf and doing this and do that. Have your downtime, but cut that a lot more down, right? Focus more on the tactical, technical, physical, mental, etc. To your point, to the question's point about to Rose's point, I believe, sorry, her name was about the is there certain personality types? I don't think there's one personality type that fits all, but there's characteristics of a personality. So keeping it F1, we look at like the Maxes, the Lewises, the Vettels, the Michaels. Let's just focus on Max because he's a current driver as well, so is Lewis. So we'll focus on those two. I think with their personality, it's the focus, it's the determination, it's just not taking any prisoners. I think one of the big things I see for Lando, and again, this might be controversial, but I think his fear of not winning exceeds his, not desire, but his confidence to win. And I think that is a personality thing, that's something that I would work with him on. But I think the characteristics you would need in a personality to go and win this is someone who is very focused, is someone who is just almost single focus on one thing, right? Like look at Max, he's just pure and utter driving. Yes, I know he's had a kid, and that's probably the only thing that's going to take him away from any sort of form of driving. But his single one focus is to become a Formula One world champion and the best driver, whatnot. He will probably do anything in his given time. I know he works a lot with the technical guys. He's always working on tweaking the car in between, overnight, things like that. These are the types of personality traits you want. Is someone who's hardworking, who's relentless, who's cutthroat, who is focused, who doesn't take any prisoners. Your will and confidence to win has almost got to be. It's abnormal to the majority of us. It's got to become obsessive. You look at like the Michael Jordan, for those of you who haven't seen The Last Dance, watch that. This is a perfect example of what I mean. People like Max, people like Michael, people like Schumacher, Jordan, whoever, Lewis Hamilton, in their prime and when they were winning, they probably were considered tyrants. If they kind of get like talked about, like he's a bit too rough, he's a bit too strict, whatever. Like there's points where we've seen Max almost get physical. I know it was a couple of years ago with Ocon, which caused him the win in Brazil. But that these are the personality types, right? You'll do anything to win. So yeah, that's my take on personality and winning.
Yeah. So the takeaway I got from that was what you just said was that it comes back to goal defining, really. And that's when I think when you watch one of Bill Bestwick's videos, he says, whenever a client comes to see me, I ask them three things. What do you want? How badly do you want it? And the third one, Lando, how much are you willing to suffer to achieve that? That's the biggest piece, right? Because what do you want? Okay, I want to be a world champion. Cool, tick. How badly do you want it? He might reply like really badly. It's something I've been working towards since I was a little boy. Here's a picture of me karting at 4 years old. Like I want this badly. But then how much are you willing to suffer for it? That's not a question these guys are asking themselves at the moment. And it goes back to our point that we discussed. The suffering is a part of it, because in the suffering comes growth. I'll take another question here from David Dillon. I'll bring it up on the screen. David Dillon, genuine question. Why would experienced F1 drivers get a driver coach if they are the best in the world? Wouldn't they know more than the coach? Well, David, welcome to sport, I guess. It's almost like saying, why would Roger Federer have a coach when he's won 20 Grand Slams? Why did Novak Djokovic recently ask Andy Murray to be his coach when Novak is the greatest tennis player to ever grace the court? It's because you're fighting at the top level. And sorry, Philippe, I might just take this one.
Oh, go for it.
You're fighting at the top level, competing against, you've got Oscar and Lando in the best car. So it's pretty much those two. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the rest. But you're fighting against the best in the world, as you mentioned. And you've got to therefore look for small marginal gains to be able to do that. You might not be able to see them yourself because you're in that bubble, you're in that world. You might want someone on the fringes, someone external to be able to give you that perspective and say, hey, did you know that you do this in this situation? Oh, are you serious? What do you mean? Oh, because when I saw you do this or this, then this happens. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. So it's perspective, it's personal growth, and it's competition at the highest level. Those are the reasons why you would get a coach. And it's a shame that because that's their thinking, right? I'm like Carlos in the podcast talking about, well, high performance to me is just physical state. Well, if it's just physical, go do a triathlon because you can bash yourself into the ground from a physical and mental standpoint. There's no timing element. Our sport is a timing sport. It's a coordination based sport. Your technique is very important. Not to say that's not in triathlons, by the way. Your swimming technique and your running technique is still a part, but we've got that to a bigger extent. And then we've also got all the other things. So it's perspective and finding extra basically to better yourself and be as good as you can. Another question from Joe D. Is having an early childhood participation award in youth sports these days compared to an older generation having winners and losers making a difference to the mental state in athletes now? That's an awesome question. The participation award. Talk to me about that one. You can take that one, Philippe.
Can you rephrase the question by participation award? Because I'm not sure I quite understand it. So does he mean by people are getting we become a bit soft by winning participation awards and you don't get first, second, or third or whatever? So
it's a good question. It's a mad question. It's a great question.
Could you repeat it again? Sorry, just so now I fully understand it.
Is having an early childhood participation award in youth sports these days compared to the older generation having just winners and losers making a difference in the mental state in athletes? Essentially, you're saying, is this buttering people up? Yeah.
100%. 100%. I think it's not going to have the biggest effect, it's not going to make or change someone's complete life, of course, but over time you get used to it. Your brain starts to limit yourselves on those things. Look, you need to lose. Failure is a part of winning. Listen to any great in any sport, in any business, whatever. You have to fail in order to learn what it takes to win. If you're getting an award for getting 8th place or 10th or whatever, what's the point? What is the point? You need to feel that sadness, that that gut feeling of almost crying that someone who you thought you could whoop on the track has beat you and got first. And then there needs to come a level of, okay, this isn't for me, move on. Or you sit there and say, all right, I am determined, I'm going to win this. What do I need to do? You make the plan. You find the right people to help you achieve the goals on that plan, right? So I think, and this goes beyond sport for anyone else listening. I think this goes in life, right? Of course, it goes back to what we were saying, set your goals, what you want to do. And if you want to just kind of take part and chill, that's fine. But if you're putting it out there, or if you want to go to win something and you want to go all out, look, I'll put it this way. I don't have kids yet, but when I do have kids, I won't be giving them any sort of participation award. If they lost, they lost, and they need to understand the loss. They need to know what it feels like to never want to feel that again. They've got to sit there and be able to make the decision themselves. Is this for me? Can I hack this? To your earlier point, can we pay that price? That discipline. It's not going to be, oh, I'm feeling great, let me work out today, let me work on my mentality, let me go speak to my engineer. You could be feeling like crap, something could have happened, but you have to take that sacrifice if you want to become a world champion. You've got to pay that price. You've got to do it when you're not feeling well. You've got to work out when you're not feeling great. There was a great story about Michael Phelps after I think he didn't do well in one of the Olympics, and for 5 years straight, I think he took 1 day off. So, of course, on those days, he's not going to be happy. So I think it does affect, and I think that's why we look at kind of like 30 years ago in sports, or maybe 20 years ago or something like that, it was a bit more kind of different between the winners and the losers, and it was a bit more accepting of how people could be quite cutthroat, whereas now it's a bit softer. So I would agree 100% with that comment.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Joe, it's an awesome question. So thank you for that one. I was just thinking now that F1 recently, F1 used to give points down to 6th place and then 8 and then 10, if I'm not mistaken, if I've got it correct. So there might be other financial reasons for that, or just to divvy the points up a certain way, but it's essentially where we're going to go. We're going to give points down to 15th place. Like, come on. What do you think about that?
Good point. Yeah, I think, you know what, I didn't think about it that way, but that's actually a really good point. You're right, because obviously back in the day, it used to be a lot less points given. But look, if they go, I think 10th, I can give it because it's halfway. Because I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 20 drivers I know next year. Next year with Cadillac, there's obviously going to be more. So maybe they could push it down to 11. I don't know. Look, if you keep at 50%, I'd give it. That's fine. Like, every sport's different. But yeah, I think it can't go past 50%. You start doing that, don't call it Formula One, call it something else, because it's probably not going to be for, like, you need to know the feeling of losing, and you've got to either make it clear that that's not cut for you, or use it to motivate you to absolutely want to get some points and start winning.
Yeah, look, poor Formula One. Look, in this podcast, I've given the sport an absolute smashing by saying the drivers are underprepared, they're overpaid, this, that, too much social media, sack the photographers and so on. But the context for all of it is, this is meant to be the excellence. This is meant to be one of the only sports in the world where we're back to the old school values of excellence, quality, precision. It's got to be all that skill, bravery. Obviously we don't want to see people injured or worse pass away, but bravery still has to be a factor as well. And respect and all those things. And I think we're just like the drivers in particular, I think they're too marshmallowed as at July 2025. Another question from Miami Buraz. Let's take this one. Given that Lawson was regulated to the RB seat after just 2 races, this is a good question. What would be the most effective way for a driver to mentally recover from such a setback and maintain focus in the long term? That's a great question. Why don't you take that one, Philippe?
Yeah, look, I actually did a video on this when Lawson got demoted to that seat. So if we're talking right now, rather than the rawness of it happening right there and then, I think if anything, he's got to look at what's happened, accept it. I always think acceptance is the first thing. Like, it has to be the first thing. You've got to actually appreciate what's happening, because otherwise you're just delusional. If you think you were beating Max Verstappen, or you were even close to him, or you were achieving the performance related kind of things that were in the contract, then fine. And if you weren't, that's delusion. So it's accepting that it wasn't good enough. I also think he needs to look at his what the benefits are right now. He's probably in a car that's easier to drive. Clearly, this RB isn't the best to drive. Whether that's because it's position to max is a different conversation. But I think he's in a car now that probably suits his driving style better and is a bit easier to drive. The other one big thing I'd speak to Liam about is the fact that you don't have the pressure. So look, when you're in that seat, and of all people, your teammate is Max Verstappen, the Terminator, basically on the track. And we all know F1 is all about you've got to outbeat your teammate before you outbeat anyone else, right? And look, fair enough. I'm sure at the time Christian Horner would have been okay if he wasn't beating Max, but he was close. So I would look at that. I mean, Isaac Hadjar is doing great, so I don't think Liam has got it. He's got it obviously much easier. Max is levels I think above, but Isaac Hadjar's hard, so I think that also helps him as well. Keeps him on his toes, keeps him fighting. It doesn't help him kind of. I think to the point about focus, this will help him focus, because if he kind of gets in his sorrows too much and beats himself up and allows that self-doubt, self-sabotage to grow, then look, that he could be the end of his career in F1 type thing. But having someone like Isaac there keeps you on your toes, keeps you focused, keeps you positive. You've got to keep scoring points. And to be fair to him, I think he's doing a decent job at it. Obviously, Isaac's doing a great job. But it's just remembering what he's got. Look, he's still in F1. He's still in a great seat. He's still got great. Just because he got kicked out of RB then doesn't mean he can't be put in a bigger team later down the line. it comes down to the point we were talking about. Performances talk louder than anything. If you perform where it matters, then Ferrari will come calling, Aston Martin, McLaren, Mercedes, whatever, they'll all come calling. So it's not the end of the story. Remind him of that. Keep him motivated about what he's got, and keep him focused by saying, keeping him on his toes, that he doesn't want to lose to Isaac. That would be my take.
Yep, I agree 100%. So it would be keeping positive. Always the silver linings is something I've learned from this podcast. Always take the silver linings. Don't beat yourself. Like, no negative self-talk, self-doubt leading to negative, none of that. So it's just take the positive. You got yourself. Even Roger would say, and actually coming back to the tennis, this is a big one. He would say, and Novak says this as well a lot, it's not about the dip that you have, the sadness of losing a point. Roger would always say, I gave myself a chance and I'll give myself another chance again in the future. So like if it was a match point, he'll be like, well, you know, I gave myself a chance at match point just because I lost it. Like I'll get another one, you know what I mean? So like staying positive. So for Liam, he would also be then saying like, I get myself an opportunity in a top team, you know, that's good. If I can just do some strong performances again, I'll get another opportunity. That's Roger. Novak always says it's not about the dip. Have your dip, but it's coming back out of that as quickly as possible. Don't stay in that lull. Then you're screwed. So the big players, the best players in the world in tennis, and I always lean on tennis because I think their mindset, Philippe, I don't know about you, but it's so much better than those in F1. Like it's 20 years ahead of F1 level mindset because there's so much accountability with you in the racket that it has to be like that. And so Novak's mindset is, you know, don't dwell, just move on quickly. It was a point, it's only a point, and, you know, get back, like pretend that just turn that around as quickly as possible. And I would go a step further and say, understand on the technical side what happened, because that's obviously that's the root cause of everything, right, Miami? To answer your question, like what actually went wrong there? Like, do we know? I mean, I've got a video out, the reasons why Liam Lawson was sacked. So there's the technical reasons. The way Liam uses the steering wheel was not very elegant in my eyes. But they also have to take that as well in the self-accountability piece. So hopefully we've answered your question there.
Can I just add to that one, Martin,
mate,
as well, quickly? Yeah, no, just very quickly. I think just 2 points. I think you touched on something that I talk to my clients a lot, and again, this can go for anyone in the chat as well, because to provide as much value is it's something what Martin said bang on, and I call it next shot mentality, and it is that, right? It's like you might have made a mistake, but one of the great things, again, to your point, Novak does as well, is that I've heard him say, you may have missed something, that's fine, and this goes for any sport. You may have missed a shot, you may have missed a goal, whatever sport you're in. It's about that next shot mentality, about believing, okay, it's going to come around again, let's do it. And it's about just, like you said, moving on from that lull. Just stay present, stay where your feet are, be where your feet are, right? You're right now, you're playing the next set point or whatever. You're in Formula One, you're in the next qualifying session, you might have made a mistake. If it's football, you're going to have another chance to shoot at the goal. Whatever it is, it's about, right, okay, cool, it's happened, but don't overthink it, don't dwell on it, just move on. And I think to your point as well, I think I think golf and tennis are great, because I know golf gets to talk to their caddies, and I know like the tennis guys get to talk to like quite far away to their support staff. But I think those two in specific, in a way, I know Formula One obviously get to speak through their kind of earpieces and whatnot. I think when you're alone in those kind of sports, I think that's where it's I really like to kind of focus in on those. And I think the mentality in a lot of those sports, especially golf and tennis, I think is supreme. I think that those guys, they can send a lot of learnings to the majority of the grid on F1.
Yeah, I'll show a quick story actually, how I, like, when I met Roger. So he's been my childhood hero for ages. I just think he was the best, mate. It was just the ever grace of tennis coach. Just, he had excess talent for days, and he was a hard worker. Of course, all of them are. It's like to get to that level of Grand Slams. I always wanted to meet him. I just always, his style on the court was like, his playing style was excellent. So I flew over to Perth to meet him for the Hopman Cup in 2018. There was a ball, like a gala dinner for New Year's Eve. So it was on New Year's Eve, and there was almost like a wedding setup where there were tables and big tables, and, you know, there were players and so on. And I was on one of these tables. Anyway, they had the teams, like it was Hopman Cup. So it's teams by nationality, like Team Germany, Team France, Team Italy, Team Switzerland, whatever. And they're all coming through the stage, and everyone's in a crowd just watching them. And I'll never forget it. Team France came through, and I'm like, yeah, next. Team Germany, I'm like next. And then Team Switzerland came through, and only his partner, Belinda, his playing partner, Belinda, was there, not Belinda Bencic. And I was like, where's Roger? And then because I flew all the way to see him. And then like the crowd, everyone's pushing. Anyway, I get this tap on my right shoulder. You wouldn't believe it. I get this tap and he goes, excuse me. I'm like, fuck, who's this now? So I turn around and it's Roger right next to me.
No
Touched me on
way.
the shoulder and said, excuse me. He walked straight through the crowd. They didn't come in from the normal side. And then joins Belinda, does his interviews and so on. Then he goes out the back and goes into the wedding room, like the function room. And I'm there in all of the crowd. And I'm like, oh, I'll go follow him. Not staying with the, I'll go follow him. And so I go follow him and I start asking him questions and I say, Roger, can I have a quick photo? Yeah, cool. And I said, did you notice that because I watched him play during the day and then I saw him at night again. I said, do you notice in the match today how much topspin you've been putting on the ball lately compared to like when I first started watching you years ago? And he goes, really? I didn't notice. I said, yeah, man, there's a lot. And this comes back to that guy's question before, I can't remember your name, sorry. Why do players have coaches? It's because they're not aware, they can't see these things. Anyway, so I told Roger and he's like, okay, interesting. Like, oh, you know, let me check or I'll think about it and have a look. But thanks for telling me, you know what I mean? So it was something like that. So yeah, that's my story of how I met Roger. I thought I'd share that with you. But yeah, got a lot of respect for the tennis. Yeah.
Dude, I bet you probably never washed that shoulder again.
There's my left shoulder. I was thinking, who's this idiot? You're like, who's pushing through the crowd? We're all trying to watch, you know what I mean? And it's like, he just said, excuse me, and pushed me to the side. And I was like, there he is.
What a story, man. That's great. I mean, like you said, to your point, I think just to give my 2 cents on Roger, I think I agree. I think he was my favorite of all time. I think Novak slightly took it just again because I'm a mentality guy, and I think Novak's mentality is above anyone else's. But if I was to choose my favorite, yeah, it has to be Roger. I mean, he was like a ballet dancer almost on that tennis court, right? But elegance, the way he played. But yeah, no, I mean, wow, that's it shows to his character as well that he was like open to listen to what you said, didn't even kind of know that he was doing it. So wow, that goes, I guess, for anyone out there, right? That meet your idols, man. Don't be afraid. Go chase them and let them know your thoughts, because you could win them a next major, I guess.
Very open-minded. Roger always talks about that as being one of his biggest strengths. Like, oh, okay, fine. If that's what you see, I'll have a look and I'll either rule it out or rule it in. Like, that's it. Whereas if you tell an F1 driver like what they're doing wrong right now, it's like, what do you know? I'm an F1 driver. So I hope that answers the question before. A couple more have come through. Simon Peters, since F1 drivers are becoming younger each year, do you think age factors into becoming an F1 champ? Are we seeing 16-year-old champions in future years? I might take that one, Philippe, if you let me. Look, Max was the youngest for a while. Before him, I think it was Raikkonen. And then Antonelli's, you know, the next one. So they kind of come every now and then. Yes, they're getting younger, but I think we've hit that ceiling. You can't have, I don't think you're allowed actually at that age to get into F1 at 16. What are you talking about? 15, then testing? Like, it's just also the fitness. You're not fully developed at that point. I think we've hit the limit on that. I think it's, if anything, it's bounced off the Max Verstappen and gone slightly back the other way. He was the youngest at that time, and it was like, no more like Max. We can't, it's too young. So they pushed it out slightly. So I think that would be unlikely. But look, in the right car, if you just land in the right seat and in the right hands and under the right circumstances, you know, never say never. I think anything's possible on that front. Rosa with one more question. There's been a discussion on Reddit entitled, when was the last time neither of the title contenders were considered the best drivers in F1? That's a good question. So suggesting that with Oscar and Lando, they're not the 1 and 2 best drivers that we have. For example, 2021 was Max and Lewis. So they're the best at the moment, or Alonso, Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton, you know, the list goes on. There's been a discussion. So when was the last time neither of the title contenders were considered not the best drivers? What's your opinion on this? I would agree with it. I'll get your thoughts in a sec, Philippe. My order would be Max, George. I did this in a video recently because someone asked me to rank them 1 to 20. I think I said Leclerc 3, but I'm thinking Alonso should be in there as well. So it was like Leclerc, Alonso, and then the McLaren drivers. But yeah, absolutely, you're right. It's not Max and George. They're the two best at the moment, I think, clearly. So when was the last time, Philippe?
Well, I suppose 22 Max didn't really have competition. 23 didn't have competition. 24 was Lando. Kind of trying to rack my brain before that. I suppose, let's be honest, before that we pretty much had Lewis dominance, and bar 2021 he didn't really have much competition. I mean, yeah, like I don't know the exact stats, but I don't know how many years Bottas was coming second. I know Danny Rick, he was great in his time, and I know he was contending, but I wouldn't really say, due to the dominance of the Mercedes, that he was fighting for a championship in those years. Yeah, and then you look at the Vettel dominance. I mean, he had quite a lot going on then. Lewis was still give or take up there. You had Alonso was definitely up there at that time. So yeah, I think you probably go further back than my brain can think of right now. But it's a great question and a good point.
Yeah, like, I mean, you got Schumacher, Hamilton in there, you got Senna, Prost, you got all these great rivalries. So it is a good question. Now we've got Norris, Piastri. It's kind of a bit underwhelming. So it's interesting. I didn't think of it like that. But look, what can you say? Like, they're not the best, but they're not the worst either. They're in my top 5, top 6. So they're not like, they're good drivers. They're good drivers. Like, they're not going to be greatest of all time level. And maybe Oscar, we'll have to wait and see because it's still only his 3rd year. Lando, given it's his 7th year, I don't think we're going to be putting him in the greatest of all time. But like, they're still good drivers. They're solid drivers. They're in that category of like Leclerc's and Carlos and Antonelli. I think George and Max are a cut above, I think. Joe D, question or comment. Federer lost nearly 50% of all the points he ever played. It's about which points you win and how to be mentally ready for them. Yeah, I heard that stat when he did his speech at the university there. It was at Dartmouth or something like that, yeah. So yeah, I heard that stat. Obviously, you've got to win more than you lose. but tennis is one of those games where, like, a win is a win, right? That's like saying when Max won all these races, he only won by 2 seconds, or as opposed to 30 seconds. A win is a win, and winning a point is winning a point. So storytelling with data on that one. Yeah, no more questions. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Thanks, Philippe, for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
No, honestly, I really did. So yeah, thanks, Martin. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and thanks for your questions. Hopefully we provided a lot of value to you, and yeah, you can take some of those lessons on board as well.
No worries. If I can just ask you guys a favor, on your way out, please leave a comment in the comment section below. If you had a thought or question, drop a comment. It definitely helps the channel. In the description of this video, you'll find all of Philippe's contacts there as well. So we've got the live stream tomorrow for the technical side. We're going to be talking about Spa. So I'll definitely see you guys there as well. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.